have a few people coming in, and then we'll get started. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. Happy to be here.
Julie says she's going to have to fake a country accent.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Miss Julie. How you doing?
Did you get my bullets for today?
I am ready. I am prepped and ready.
Did you get mine?
I did. That's what I'm saying. And I'm absolutely going to use them. Stand by for some embarrassment.
Right. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get started, and then I'll hand it over to y'all.
Y'all.
That was really loud.
Oh, was it really?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. How are y'all doing? Good. I know they do not want to be on camera, but I'll turn the camera around in a second so y'all can see them. But I just want to welcome everyone to Lunchbox Learning. Today we have two very special presenters with us. Before I jump into their introduction, have you been upstairs to see war dogs yet? Okay, so it is directly above us actually. And it is the Museum of the Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and the Navy. So a lot of combat artwork, but the focus is those sculptural wounded warrior dogs by James Melech. He is an Ohio craftsman, and he was inspired by the service of men and women in the military. He decided to focus on wounded warrior dogs, which Chris, I don't know if you have a little bit more insight. Julie was asking why specifically he focused on wounded warrior dogs, but a master craftsman, and so he's creating that sculptural allegory of man and woman's best friend serving alongside during battle. So I definitely encourage you to head upstairs to explore that one. If you'd like, afterwards when we get off the Zoom, I can give you a little quick tour through the exhibit. But to get us started, we have Chris Willingham. He is a retired Master Sergeant who served 20 years in the United States Marine Corps. That's from January 1999 to January 2019. The majority of his career was dedicated to military working dog program. During that 20-year career, he served as a military working dog handler, trainer, instructor, supervisor, and program manager. He deployed to the Middle East multiple times. I think I'm gonna have to mute y'all when I'm talking. It just goes so loud here. Okay. So he was instrumental in developing and enhancing military working dog courses, policies, and orders due to his operational and training experience. He's active in community outreach and bringing awareness to the service and sacrifice of military war dogs, as he's doing today. And he's provided numerous print, television, and radio interviews about military working dogs. And that includes Good Morning America, BBC, LA Times, Today Show. Featured in the exhibition is his dog, Luca, that he worked with. Luca unfortunately passed, I think it was 2018, but they conducted counterinsurgency operations. I don't know why there's so much feedback, I'm sorry, y'all. Located numerous improvised explosive devices and were credited with saving countless lives. Luca led more than 400 missions during her career, and no one was ever hurt until the day she herself suffered a severe injury on the battlefield. It was on January 1st of this year that Chris assumed the role President of the United States War Dog Association. Also, we have Julie Schrock. She is the Gold Star mother of Corporal Max Donahue and author of Missing Max, and the later revised and extended edition, Still Missing Max. Unfortunately, these are not in print anymore, but Missing Max is a compelling story of one mother's journey as Julie recalls the events surrounding the death of her Marine son, Max. Max was killed in Afghanistan in August of 2010. On the bookmark that she sent with the book to me, it states, Julie Schrock has experience and training in a variety of fields, none of which are traditional qualifications for writing a book. What qualifies her to write this book are her experiences as a mother of a Marine son deployed to and killed in Afghanistan. On that topic, she is a subject matter expert. And as we go through today's program, you're going to learn more about that relationship between Julie and Chris. So if y'all are ready, I was going to start with Chris. Once I ask you the question, I'm going to mute myself. But if you could give us a little bit of insight into your early military career, maybe what influenced you to enlist in the United States Marine Corps?
Yes, ma'am. I was born and raised in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and my dad he served in the Marine Corps for a couple years and then served in Vietnam. And after that, he served 34 years in law enforcement. And he didn't necessarily push me into the Marine Corps. He was actually supportive of whatever I wanted to do. But he's also my hero. So I was a big fan of the way he conducted himself and the reputation he had and the work ethic. And he credits, of course, some of that's just the way he was raised, but he also credits the Marine Corps. And so I graduated high school. I went to college for a couple of years, and I just felt like I needed more of a challenge. And my goal was to go serve in the Marine Corps for 4 years to get some life experience, and then go back to Alabama and go into law enforcement. And actually, my dad and I's career would have overlapped. I would have had the opportunity to work with him for a few years, and a couple of things changed that. Is one, I got selected to be a dog handler, and I found my true passion in the Marine Corps. And then 9/11 happened the next year, and then those two events alone just called me to stay in for a full 20 years.
And so speaking a little bit more on your career as a military war dog handler, could you highlight, I gave some of those roles that you played: handler, trainer, instructor, program manager. Can you explain that a little bit better? And what's the difference in each of those roles?
Yes, ma'am. So when I first started out, I go to Canine school down in San Antonio, Texas, and I went back to Camp Lejeune and I became a dog handler. So I understood enough how to basically manage a search and read my dog's change of behavior, and didn't necessarily, I had a little bit of a training hat on at that time, but I was more a handler. Like I could operate one dog, I could read some behaviors, but I was, that's where you all start at. And you start to get more repetitions under your belt, and you start to kind of grow and develop and learn some different training methodologies. And then I kind of grew into a trainer role, which is a natural progression, where I still had a dog, but I was also helping train some of the younger guys now. I'd been in for like 2-3 years. So the guys who were just coming out of Canine school, now I was helping train them. And then I had the opportunity to go to Lackland Air Force Base. Instead of as a student, I was stationed down there, and that's like the DOD Canine capital. Like that's where majority of our guys go to Canine school. That's where the dogs are trained, and that's where I truly became a trainer. That's where I'd go on buy trips to Germany, Czech Republic, Holland, and the largest one I went on, we looked at 480 dogs and selected 181 of them. Just kind of give you an idea. And then you bring them back to Texas, and you were we had training teams, and we had usually 4 or 5 trainers and about 18 dogs per team. And you had 100 days to train those dogs in obedience, detection, and apprehension work, bite work. They certified, and you picked up another 18. So that's when you're dealing with medium drive dogs, high drive dogs. Like you really truly learn how to become a dog trainer, having to deal with those different personalities and drives, and have to adapting your style to what makes that dog help reach his potential. And I think one of the highlights for me was after that becoming an instructor. So I was a trainer and instructor for the Specialized Search Dog program. So we've used military dogs officially since World War II, and every time you deal with a war or conflict, you have to adjust your capabilities to meet the threats that you're facing. And the number one threat we had in Iraq and Afghanistan was improvised explosive devices. And so we developed a program specifically for those, and that was the Specialized Search Dog. And I was fortunate enough to be the first Marine instructor for it to help kind of grow and develop that, and those early life lessons learned and apply them. And but just absolutely incredible to see that program from the very beginning days and help build the foundation and see it kind of grow. because you would train green dogs or brand new dogs, you're training them, and then I would get students, and I'd have to train the handler and the dog together to make them a cohesive working unit. And then you fast forward, and I was in operationally. Now I'm back out at. I spent 7 years total out at Camp Pendleton, California, in an operational unit. So now I'm in back with the dogs where we're sending dogs that we're deploying and going to Iraq and Afghanistan. So, and I've loved each one of those stages, but that one was special to me because now you're working with. There's a little more at stake, and now I'm working with the guys I'm going to be deploying with, or deploying myself as a dog handler. So, as a kennel master, the next step was I was in charge of 60 dog teams at Camp Pendleton, and just responsible for their overall operational readiness and training. And then I ended up at MARSOC, Marine Corps Special Operations Command, as a program manager. So I had kennels on the East Coast and West Coast, and I kind of oversaw the entire program. So it's very rare for someone to be able to stay in Canine that long. And I was just very fortunate to the way my career fell. I spent 17 of my 20 years in Canine, and absolutely loved every minute of it. It was an incredible journey for sure. Met some wonderful people, and just you're part of a really special brotherhood when you become a dog handler.
So let's say it's a typical day working with military working dogs. What does that look like? Is there a typical day? Is it different every single day? I'm sure there has to be some kind of routine.
Yes, ma'am. There's some routine to it because you and just some like husbandry. Like you go in and we take care of the dogs as far as like their kennel care, let them exercise, and then we load them up. We go out to a training site, and we have established training criteria we're looking for that day. It's said commonly, like it's hard to believe I get paid to play with dogs. Like it's a fun job. Like it's like when you're like teaching the dogs a new task, and you see them like start to understand the concept, they start to put some things together. It was like teaching my son to ride a bicycle and like taking my hand off the back seat for the first time. Like, oh, I think he's got it. Like, and then when they finally get it, and they're popping wheelies. Like it's that kind of excitement when you see that growth in the development of the dog, and they start to understand the training and understand what we're asking to do of them. We're just tapping into this like positive association, but that's a standard daily. For me personally, I always try to do 3 training sessions a day with my dogs, whether it was I was running 5 or 6 myself, or if I had 60 Marines, like everybody's going to run their dog on 3 separate sessions. So it could be obedience, and then it could be 2 sessions of explosive detection, or obedience, explosive detection, and then some type of bite work. And then we go back, we put the dogs back up, feed them, and then go home for the day, and then come back and do it all over again.
So when training one dog, how long does that training typically last?
So there's various programs. So like I said, when we were doing some basic training for dogs, it was about 100 training days. Now when we went through the specialized, when we went to so a specialized search dog is a dog who's just trained for explosives, but they're also trained to search off leash. So it takes a little bit more to get the proficiency you need to be operational with an off leash capability. So that went more like I went through a specialized course that was close to 9 months for that one. But you're talking about the ability to send my dog 500 yards in front of me with radios on her back, and I could talk to her through like a little microphone I had underneath my, I had like a push to talk I could put on my glove. So I keep my hand on my weapon, and I had a mic coming down so I could talk to her through radio. Like you're talking about some pretty advanced training. So that took a lot longer, but your baseline was about 100 training days.
It's incredible. It never occurred to me of like a dog being mic'd.
Yes.
You touched a little bit on it. There are the explosive device dogs that are sniffing out those explosive devices. What other kind of types of military working dogs are there?
So today we have the most common state. So after Vietnam, like after most wars or conflicts, they started downsizing the Canine program, and that's when they said after Vietnam, well, we can use these dogs for a law enforcement purpose. So that was kind of the role from then until 9/11. So you had what's called a patrol explosive detection dog, which is still the mainstay of all our Canine programs. So that's a dog who is dual purpose. So they have 2 main training, not objectives, but they have 2 main training capabilities. And that's one, they can find explosives, but they also have the ability to detect an individual for apprehension work. So your dual purpose dog has been around for a long time, and they're still well. That's like the mainstay of our inventory. Then we developed a specialized search dog program. We also brought back the combat tracking dog program from Vietnam. So tracker dogs are trained to do scent specific tracking. So the idea is if my dog were to find an IED, this dog could come up and do a 360 and then help track back towards the individual who laid that IED. So they could, and I'm not asking them to go all the way into like a compound, or at that point you're starting to get in a dangerous situation of a potential ambush. But as long as you give me a direction to travel, hey, the dog is telling me the guys went this way. Then what we do is military tactics to close time and distance. And then we have the last one we have in current day is called a multi-purpose canine, and those are with our specialized our special operations command. So the Marine Corps' version of Navy SEALs. So they can do a little bit of everything. They do detection, they do bite work, they do tracking, but they also have to be able to be employed in any manner that the team is. So that's when we did a lot of fast roping and helo casting and spy rigging, and just be able to make sure the dog can handle those different variables and still do their job. That was the main thing. Can you be on a helicopter ride and then still go out and perform your task? And those dogs are highly trained, highly selected, and just incredible what they did. So we kind of got a variety of capabilities depending on what the mission set is.
If you could tell us a little bit about Luca, since she is featured upstairs in the exhibition.
I'd rather not. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Luca is.
Thanks. Can you tell I didn't do a test run with him?
Luca she was an incredibly special dog. Like I said, I had hundreds of dogs on leash from those selection trips and down at Lackland. And like when I say there was truly something special about her, like her trainability, her intelligence, the personality, the spirit, like we got so well connected, like she could perform tasks before I had to ask her. She just knew it was time to check in with me for the next directional or the next command. But she was born in Holland in 2004, and then Luca and I went through a specialized training course in Israel in 2006, and we were together for the next 5 years. So I trained that dog from day one. And I'll tell you, the first week, she didn't want nothing to do with me. Like, she got her toy. Like, if I gave her a toy, like, she would just take off running. Like, I got what I want. This is my paycheck. Like, I don't need nothing to do with you. And so it took a little bit for us to build that genuine rapport between Luca and I. And then once that clicked, we took off. Like, we took off. Like, we started understanding each other, and I knew how to work with her drives and traits and behaviors, and then she also knew the expectations, and then we started really gelling together as a cohesive working unit. And then we were together for the next 5 years, and 2 deployments to Iraq, and just an absolutely incredible dog. I mean, she's the only reason I made it home to my family. And then when she got injured, so Juan Rodriguez was a Marine. It was on my 2010 deployment to Afghanistan, and the way it works is our dogs are assigned to the military bases, and so when you get ready to rotate out, the dog stays with the base until they're ready for retirement. So getting to pick the guy who took over for me, I selected Juan, and he's an incredible Marine. He was a great handler, a great trainer. He did great for me in Afghanistan in 2010, and they paired up. They trained together for close to a year. And then they deployed to Afghanistan, back to Afghanistan, 2011. That same week, I went to Helsinki, Finland, to be stationed at the U.S. Embassy. And so I continued to share care packages and keep in touch with my guys. And March 23rd, 2012, they were leading a patrol, and they'd already had several finds of IEDs, and they were leaving a tree line going to a compound to search. And Luca located an IED. And then the idea is where there's one, there's two, where there's two, there's three. You always look for secondaries. There's my known threat. Where are my unknown threats? And just following our standard protocols, he started looking for secondaries. And unfortunately, what there was an ID that detonated and injured her front left leg. And his training kit, we get a lot of training on medical care, critical care on the battlefield. And he went running up and picked Luca up, stopped the bleeding, got her back to the tree line, and him and the medic got her a shot of morphine and completely stopped the bleeding, saved her life. She got medevaced in 10 minutes for two. They called it for a medevac for two. So Juan jumped on a helicopter with her, and she was off leash. Nobody else was injured. And the best part is, she was in 10 days. She was walking again, no internal eye or ear damage, and she had the same spirit as she had beforehand. Like, I've seen dogs go through a lot less and suffer a lot more, but for her to be injured in the manner she was and still be the same Luca, that was incredible. That was amazing. And thanks to the Robbie law that was established in 2000, handlers get a chance to adopt their dogs out. So and Juan knew that that was the deal. He was going to take her on her last deployment. She wasn't going to be old enough to deploy again after that. Juan and I had that discussion. He's like, man, that's Luca's absolutely your dog. So Luca and Juan escorted Luca over to Finland. And when they showed up in Finland, they had they only let Luca and Rodriguez off the plane at a terminal and unload everybody else at another terminal. And it was just me and my family and my ambassador from the embassy, and a couple people, covering it for media. And they said, here they come down the corridor, and they come walking down. And for a minute, I was like, what if this dog don't recognize? That's gonna be embarrassing if they should run past me or something. And I called her name, and Luca's not a dog that licks very much. And she came running up and jumping on me and licking my face. And that's when you know you're in her good graces. And I give up and give Juan a big hug, and he stayed with us for 2 weeks over there. And Luca slept in his room every night. And I think it served as a good transition for her, but it gave me a chance to personally thank Juan for saving her life. And it just, in the next 6 years in retirement, she became a great ambassador for the Military Working Dog Program. We got involved with some nonprofits that benefit wounded veterans and families of the fallen, and going to schools and public outreach and bringing awareness about what our dogs do for us. And towards the end, when Luca her health started declining, I called Juan, and me and Juan have been reunited. We get together a couple times a year. I'll actually see him tomorrow for a canine reunion. And so he flew out to North Carolina, and we spent 4 days together and watching videos of Luca telling war stories. And her last day, we took her to the beach one more time, and we took her and got her an ice cream cone, and we were both with her when she took her last breath. It was a very private moment, but it meant a lot for both of us to be there, because she meant so much to both of us. And that's it. That's the story of Luca. I owe everything to that dog.
Thank you for sharing that. So Julie, you're on mute right now, Julie. I'm sending you the request to unmute. I think there you go. Could you tell us a little bit about the life of Max, growing up with Max? I know, reading through the book, he's extremely protective. Y'all are an extremely tight unit. So you just tell a little bit of that, and then his inspiration or his drive to want to serve in the military.
Well,
little ones here.
My first clue that Max was going to be his own person, I think, was actually the day he was born. He was 2 weeks before my due date, and there was a 24-hour period of time where my husband was going to be out of town and my best friend. And 2 weeks early, we thought that no problem. Well, that's when he decided to come. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm timing the contractions and driving myself to the hospital. And then he got stuck and had to be suctioned out. So, it was really the first clue that I had that he never really entered a room quietly, and he didn't enter the world quietly. I think there was, I put it in the book, Plato said something about how the most unmanageable animal is a boy. And that would be true in Max's case.
And so I think you said he was in 8th grade when there were the attacks on 9/11.
Yeah, he was 14 years old in 8th grade, and we were driving back home from school. And he said, "Mom, if I was old enough, I'd be signing up to fight." And I remember saying, well, honey, as an American woman, that makes me proud, but as your mother, it scares me to death. And he followed through on that promise. He graduated high school in May, and I think he was in boot camp in August.
All right. So I don't know if it's you, Julie, or Chris. Share a little bit of how your lives became interwoven, how you've created this lasting relationship.
Hey, Chris, go.
So it was we were this is a tough one. So Max joined our platoon in January 2010, and we went to Afghanistan that summer, and it was the first time we took 30 dog teams over there. It was during the surge in Afghanistan. It was a very dangerous time. We knew we were going to a high operational tempo, and it was the largest deployment of dog handlers from one platoon since Vietnam. Like it was a big deal, and our guys were ready, and Max was one of the things I'll say before I get to the deployment was, out of 30 of us, I think that maybe 5 of us had deployed before, and that included Max. And so when you got someone that comes in as a corporal, it's different than me saying it and telling some of the young Marines, but when you got one of their peers helping lead them as a peer leader, it just sells different. When you got someone who's a corporal with telling other corporals like, hey, this is kind of the rules of the rope of, Canine and on deployments. And so he's a huge asset to the platoon. And like, we were better the day he stepped on deck just based off of his training and operational experience. And we took that group forward in June 2010, and then on a patrol down in Garmster district, Max was killed on one of the patrols in Safar Bazaar area. I'd been out on a patrol with Max probably 3 days before that, and afterwards I wrote a letter, and I had some pictures. Like I collected pictures from everybody in the platoon who had pictures of Max from our train ups to the deployment up to that point, and I put that together like in a 3-ring binder, and I sent it out, and I left like the door open, like, here's my information, like my email, if you wanted to contact. It's 100%. I don't know how people are going to deal with it, but I wanted to leave the door open because you're now a very special part of our family, and Miss Julie reached out, and that started the communication. And it's the first time I met Miss Julie, I was extremely nervous. I was extremely I didn't really know how to. Obviously I've never been in that situation, but I just didn't know how that was going to go. Like I was very nervous when I met her, because I felt responsible, and I was going through my own mental issues, and Miss Julie was incredible, and we laughed together, we cried together, we shared stories. Like one thing I felt that was important when we first started talking, when I saw her in person, was some of even the most mundane things that was day-to-day life for us at Camp Pendleton. Miss Julie loved hearing everything, because when a Marine goes home on leave, they tell you the big stuff. Like they tell you the fun stuff. Like they don't tell you like the day-to-day. Like, so I'd mentioned something about field day, and she's like, "What's that?" Like, well, that's where we all had to clean stuff like every Thursday, and then so I just like to be able to fill in, and I started understanding that, it's the importance of filling in the gaps of the stuff that you don't think's important until you're not here to make any more memories. Then it's all important. So I think we started developing a good relationship early on, and I was still approached. Initially, I was more of like, I felt like like a command representative. Like I just wanted to, Miss Julie, I think I owed this to her because of Max was my Marine, but that quickly turned into just a relationship of just what it's grown into. We can actually have a conversation and have a true friendship, and it doesn't always have to end in a sad moment. It can be positive. It's grown, and Miss Julie's like faith is absolutely inspiring to me and has helped me out and more than she knows. So I think that growth and development over the years is incredible. I go elk hunting out with my dad 4 or 5 times over the last probably 7, 8 years. And Miss Julie lives in Colorado, so I would always fly in like a day early and go stay with her and Mr. Chad and spend the day with them and stay there. And then she would help me link up with my dad and his buddies driving through town. And so she got to meet my dad and everything. And but those moments right there were special to me, to be able to spend time with her, Mr. Chad, and just kind of talk about the everything from the train up, the deployment, but just, it got started. Now we can just talk about life too. We can just talk about, she was asking about my kids. She's knows my wife and knows, like, so now we have like just a general relationship, but it started from a place I really wish I never had to meet her in those circumstances, obviously. But now Miss Julie's, she's family. She's absolutely family to me.
I think it's funny that, Chris, you've been to Afghanistan and everything you've done, and I'm what scares you. And I would think, but Chris I think he and Max were a lot alike. They're both very strong presence. They both really are professional in what they do, and they're probably top in their field, and both very protective. So there's a lot about you that reminds me of Max. And especially afterwards, I always felt real safe around Max, like, who's going to mess with me when he's to my right or my left? And I felt that way with you after he died. And I'm like, and I noticed that feeling, and I was really aware of it. I'm like, and it felt good. So I will say, the first time I spoke with you, because Chris and I corresponded on email and Facebook for a while. First time I talked to him on the phone, I said, I had to interrupt him and say, I got to stop you, because this Southern high-pitched voice does not match the pictures of you that I saw. Like, what? And I feel this way about you.
I got a good laugh here. So, do y'all have any stories? I know, Julie, you said you really didn't have a dog growing up, but any stories of Max as a dog handler or his dog, Fenji?
I don't have many, because I wasn't with him. He was in the Marines. The only one that I could recall is Chad and I were over in Oahu, which was where Max was stationed. And I asked him, who's at the kennels with the dogs? And he's like, well, nobody, Mom. And he drove up to the kennel, because I was surprised. I'm like, those dogs are alone. And he drove up to the kennel and he rolled down his window and he just barked out the window. Those dogs, nuts. Yeah. And there was all these dogs barking like they meant it. And I'm like, I realized then that's probably the safest place to be on base is with, because I wasn't going to get out of the car.
All right. Julie, can you tell us a little bit about writing the book Missing Max, and then that revised expanded edition, Still Missing Max? How you had the courage to do it?
I wouldn't call me courageous, but as Chris mentioned, I've got a really strong faith, and I during my prayer time would get this leading to write a book, and I never had an intention to write a book, never wanted to write a book, and certainly not about that subject matter. But it just kept laying on my heart, so I finally gave up and said, "Fine, I'll write it." But kind of a prayer to God, this is your book, and you can do with it what you want. And it was, once it was written and out there, it was used the way that I was hoping it would get used. So the second version was the first book I wrote in the first year. And then the following, 5 years after that, so much else happened that it's like my publisher said, even if you don't share my faith, it's hard to believe that something's not going on there. Because it was just too many, I'll call them coincidences that put it all together. No way.
Yes, ma'am.
And you had shared with me, Julie, 2 other books. One was Top Dog, which was a focus on Luca and Chris. Yeah. I think you wanted to share a little bit about the impact behind that book and the other book, Dog Soldier.
Yeah, Soldier Dog.
Yes.
Yeah, Marie Gudovich was the author of both. And I had questions, obviously, surrounding what happened to Max. And her first book was Soldier Dogs, that talks about, you know, a lot of military working dogs. But she started her book, page 1, paragraph 1, about Max. And she kind of interweaves through her book about, you know, his life and the hours before he got hit. So I had conversations and stories about, it was contained in that book, that were about Max. And then Top Dog, which was about Luca and Chris, you get to chapter 9, and that's when he got the call that one of his Marines was down. And so that chapter led me through, this is what happened once, you know, Max was identified by Chris, and how his unit and his Marine buddies handled it. So here with one book, I have, here's everything that happened prior to the explosion. And then here's this other book that leads me through how it was handled by the other Marines. And between those 2 books and other experiences, I had all the answers to the questions that I needed or wanted. And not everybody gets that, and I know that.
Going back to your book, it stuck out to me, and you said you would share it. It's the section called My Lieutenant Dan's Wish. You could tell that story.
Well, the information we were getting was that Max, as soon as the explosion, he lost both of his legs, and ultimately his right arm was amputated. And I remember the part of the Forrest Gump movie where Lieutenant Dan, who had lost both his legs, got his prosthetics, and it was at Forrest's wedding, and he's walking across the lawn with his new legs. And I was like, that'll be Max. You know, he will go through a real difficult period of time, but ultimately he's going to be walking and have a fiance and a new life. And I kind of clung to that in terms of having a vision of what Max's life, you know, would be. One thing that did also that struck me in that movie was there was a dialogue between he and his mom, and he said, "Why are you dying, Mama?" And she said, "Well, it's my time." And you know, she mentioned destiny, and Forrest asked her, "Well, what's my destiny?" And she's like, "You've got to figure that out for yourself." And I realized, or I thought, that Max, I believe, lived out his destiny. You know, he did what God put him on this earth to do, and in his short 23 years. And not everybody can say that, you know, even with long lived lives, you know, I fulfilled my destiny. And I can only hope that, you know, that I do the same. But I believe that Max did exactly what he was put on earth to do. I do think it's funny that the 2 sources of strength for me were the Bible and Forrest Gump. You know? Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
I love it.
And upstairs you can see the quilt, which you give a little bit of insight behind the quilt. I think it was made by a group of ladies for you.
Blue Star Moms. We were out at Pendleton actually with Chris for a dedication of the Marine crosses for the Marine dog handlers that had been killed. There were 8 of them. And at the end of that ceremony, we were back at the kennels, and Chris and a young Marine, Giovanni Cruz, presented me with this quilt. One of Giovanni's friends had the Blue Star Mom, and Blue Star is like, I'm a Gold Star Mom because my son was killed in action. Blue Star indicates families that have a soldier Marine that is currently deployed. So there's a group of Blue Star moms got together, and my understanding is the Marines in Max's unit and guys who knew him donated personal items and pieces of clothing, which were then interwoven into that quilt. And when I got it, I brought it home, and I've had my same best friend since we were 12. And Judy saw it, and she said, that is too beautiful and too significant to be up in your workout room. And she said, you know, you're never going to roll up in it, so that needs to go to a museum. And I contacted Congressman Mike Kaufman, who's been wonderful to us. And I said, Mike, where do I go with this? And immediately he said, the Marine Museum. And he made a contact and we got together and they had a display there, and that's where somebody from your museum saw it, and it's making the rounds.
All right,
Can I say something real quick about that?
absolutely.
So one thing that that stuck out to me was so I was given a talk to families of fallen police officers, and I asked Miss Julie, I kind of gave her a rundown of what I was going to talk about, and I wanted to get her feedback and insight, and she helped me out greatly. But one of the things that she told me that I hadn't heard until that point involved that quilt was, so in the Marine Corps, we're big on saying their name, like repeating their name. Like there's a saying that, everyone dies twice, once when they take their last breath, and then once again when the last time their name is spoken. So in that light, we always take time to honor our fallen. Like we're getting ready to have a big Marine Corps Canine reunion in San Antonio at the end of this week, and we're going to have over 100 dog handlers there. And we're going to take time to say each of their name and keep their legacy alive. Well, she had that when the quilt was at the Marine Corps Museum. Miss Julie was saying that she was just observing people going up to see the quilt and read about it, and had a little display where it can talk about it. And there was an older gentleman who was leaving, walking away from it, and she heard him under his breath say Max Donahue. And that meant the world to her, but her saying that to me like really hit home. Like just a complete stranger learned about Max that day, said his name, kept his legacy alive, and that was absolutely important to me. That's very important for all of us, just to continue to say their name and keep their legacy alive and tell their stories.
All right, so I'm about to open it up to questions from the audience, if y'all have any. But first, and I'm going to try to share some photographs while you're telling us. Can you tell us a little bit about how you are now, I said it at the very beginning, Chris, the president of the United States War Dogs Association. So what exactly do you do? I know you do a lot of community outreach, but anything else you want to share?
Yes, ma'am. I'll wrap it up in a little elevator speech. So it was established in 2000 by 5 Vietnam dog handlers. They had the goal of just bringing awareness to, they want to raise money for a monument for war dogs. And they did that. And they dedicated the monument in 2006. Like I said, they were established in 2000. Well, the next year, 9/11 happens. We start deploying dog teams to Iraq and Afghanistan, and they started supporting them. Some of my biggest supporters were Vietnam dog handlers and Vietnam veterans. I was on the receiving end of support from them for years. Every deployment I went on, all my Marines were on the receiving end of support of care packages. And a couple of years ago, Ron Aiello, who was the president, asked me to take over. I joined the board, took over January 1st. And it's basically a life cycle of practical support for military working dogs. So when they're active duty, we send care packages. When they retire, we give we have a military working dog service award. And then retirement's the big piece. So when I retired, I get VA coverage, what our dogs don't. Like I said, I got an opportunity to adopt Luca, which is incredible, but it also comes with financial burden of any medications, and it could be just joint supplements and stuff that dogs are now 9 years old that may need just to maintain a good quality of life. And every handler would gladly pay that, but that's our job, as we come in and help alleviate that cost. So right now we're paying for over 1,100 dogs, retired military dogs. We cover their prescription medication. We have a couple other medical programs, and we also have educational outreach. We're actually going to dedicate a monument, Canine monument in DC on Thursday on Veterans Day at the Navy Museum. So it's from education to supporting the dogs, active and retired. It's just I love it. It keeps me connected to the military canine community, and continue to support the ones who are serving, honor the ones who served in the past.
All right. I don't know if y'all can see the pictures. Can y'all see them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. If anyone has a question, I'm probably going to need you to come up here, or I'll try to repeat it.
Can you just repeat? What characteristics does Chris look for when he's choosing a dog?
What characteristics do you look for when choosing a dog, Chris?
So we're going to go and look for a couple main drives. So I need a dog that has hunt drive. So a real basic test, if I take a ball and I throw it out into a field and let the dog go get it, and then I bring him back and I take that ball again and I'll throw it out in the field, and I'll step behind a car. We usually have a car out there. I'll step behind a car. You go pick the ball up and let's go watch that dog hunt again. I'm gonna put him on the clock for about a minute and let me just see if does he stay committed to hunting, and because he cares so much about that toy, or does he lose interest and go off and just just do what a dog does and run around and play and go to the bathroom. I want a dog that's so committed to that reward that that hunt drive kicks in and they want it. Whatever I got to do, I'm going to find that thing. So that's number one, is hunt drive. Prey drive is important because I want them to be able to chase that ball, and that's going to lead to them actually valuing that tennis ball, that cone, and we're going to use that for some positive association to train the dog. And then the other one I would say is the most important is environmental testing. So we're going to take the dog almost kind of like a Lowe's situation. So we go in, now you got slick surfaces. We'll go into the bathroom with the tiled floors and some dark spaces, up stairwells, and just make sure the dog can, now he's not in drive. I'm not making it exciting by hiding a ball. I'm just letting the dog basically walk through a store, but I'm really getting him exposed to like 7 or 8 key environmental things just to make sure that doesn't freak the dog out and he can overcome and just be in some different areas. And then if he doesn't show any of that, then I know I can help train between those drives, not having environmental issues. I can train that dog to whatever task I want to.
So my dogs would fail miserably. Can barely live regular life with them. Any questions? Yes, in the back. Okay. So, lady has asked, what is life like for a dog on deployment? What is kind of daily life, I suppose, in service?
I think one of the best things is like when Luca and I deployed, I thought I knew everything about her. I thought I knew the ins and outs of Luca. Like I thought we were just really well, really good dog team. When you deploy, you're spending, like Miss Julie was saying, like the dogs stay at the kennels when we're back home overnight. But when you deploy, that dog stays with you 7 days a week. Like if I'm sleeping on the cot, she's sleeping on the cot with me. Like if we're on the move and we take over a compound and I'm staying in that compound tonight, I just got her leash like wrapped around my wrist and she's sleeping right beside me. So you literally spend every day with that dog. And I think one of the things that I loved was like an unofficial, but I think a very important mission for us was in between patrols. At some point, it can't be all training and all work. Like you got to relieve some stress and let the dog just be a dog. So like in between patrols, I could take the harness off and I could just let her be a dog around the troops we're supporting. Incredibly just therapeutic and just bringing up morale and just bringing a piece of home to a bad place. And it just let her just enjoy playing fetch and just getting free belly rubs and just kind of letting a little stress break for everybody. And then I go back, put the harness on, give her the command, and she'll go right back to work and it's time to go again. But just living with that dog 7 days a week, you truly get to understand all the ins and outs, and that really kind of takes you to the next level.
All right. Yes. Okay. Okay. So they're asking, what is that transition home like for the dog coming home after service?
And you're talking about like once you adopt them and bring them to your house?
Yes.
Yeah. So every dog's a little different, but it's surprisingly quicker than you would think. Like once they realize that they can sleep on a couch and that they can sleep on a big dog, because everybody's gonna get a big comfy dog bed, and once they realize that life is cush for them, like, and they can just watch ESPN and just hang out, like they adjust pretty quick. And I would still, like with Luca, even with 3 legs, she still had to drive to be a working dog. So I would still do obedience. The only difference was she just got the toy regardless if you listen or not. Like you retire, like you get whatever you want. But but just tapping into that, it's almost like an athlete that retires out of the NFL. Well, they still got juice left to go out and just work out and run and stuff like that. So I would still do some type of a task oriented. And they loved it. It was all just still within their wheelhouse, but then they got a lot of just time just to chill out and relax on the couch and be with the family the whole time, and then and establish that new, how does that role fit in the pecking order of, you know, the wife and the kids, and I got the dog, and they quickly establish like, okay, we're all part of one pack now, and then at that point you just trade the combat patrols for family walks, and absolutely love it.
Yes. We have siblings fighting over a question. Okay, she is asking, what kind of breed do you look for?
So back in World War II, when they had the dogs for defense, like people could donate their dogs for the war effort. That was like all hands on deck, and they accepted up to like 30, 40 breeds. And over the years, we've kind of dwindled it down to about 3 or 4 major breeds that have the trainability, the intelligence, can handle the rigors of combat. And that's German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois, which are like a cousin to the German Shepherd, and have maybe a little more agile, a little more athletic, but both of them are incredible working dogs. You got some Dutch Shepherds, which is like almost in that Shepherd family. But we also use labs just for our single purpose work. We used Labrador Retrievers. Those are major breeds we use today.
Any other questions? Yes.
How do they pair dogs with handlers?
Okay.
And if they sometimes not go on, or
Yeah, have to change it up. Excellent question. She said, how do you pair the dog with the handler? And do you have to sometimes change that later on?
Yep, so that's a great question. So like, for example, when I was at either at the schoolhouse and I'm pairing up the dog and the student for the first time, or at Camp Pendleton and I get a new dog or a new handler and I'm trying to make the right pairing, I take a lot of pride in getting that right. I'm looking at personalities. I'm looking at, I'll give them a chance to work a couple different dogs, and I'll just see who they kind of gel with the most. I like to see if a dog maybe needs a little more praise, and you find that Marine's a little more animated. If the dog is like very independent, then that stoic Marine can still be a great fit for him. So you're trying to match up personalities the best you can to get that fit right the first time. That's what they did with Luca and I too over in Israel. Like they just basically for a week, we went through some courses and classes, and we kind of worked all the dogs, but they were sizing us up and trying to match the best personality with the best dog's personality that would make the best cohesive team. Some dogs, all they want to do is work, and they don't care about the affection and the pets and the praise. They just going to work and getting that toy when they find it is all they need, and their day is made. We have some Marines who are like, me Marine, I don't do the high praise stuff. I just do this dog. So that Marine would do really well with that type of dog. And then some guys are like, and that dog needs that. And so you try to find those good pairings, and you try to get it right the first time, just so you can maintain that relationship for the first, that 3 years they're together.
All right. Do they baby talk to the dogs?
And for the record, I was like, that was all me.
Thank you for doing that, Tia. All right. I'm gonna turn the camera around just so you can see it. The little kids are leaving, but they were here. I know that's probably blurry. Y'all want to say hey? Thank you so much, Chris, Julie. I hope to stay in touch with y'all. We really appreciate it.
Very much.
All right, y'all stay put. But yeah, we have 4 little kids in the back, so they just left. But thank y'all so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.